Hi, I'm John from Just Music. If you like today's show, please give it a thumbs up, like, and subscribe. And when you click subscribe, click on that little black bell that says all, so you'll be notified for all of my episodes, all of my shows. And if you're feeling generous, there's a PayPal email link below. And check out my other channel, Just Whiskey. But today is Just Music, and today we are going to be doing my top 3 guitarists of all time. But there's quite a few runner-ups that need to be talked about and acknowledged. So buckle in, and here we go. So first off, I have to say, there's a difference between listening to music and feeling music. A lot of people listen to it. A lot of people hear it in the background. But not everybody feels it. And what I mean by that is I don't feel every song or every note that I hear. But there are many vocals or guitar parts where I get the chills, or the hairs will stand up in the back of my neck, and it's like a drug, and it's like euphoria. So when I get down to my final 3, and we're going to talk about some other feelings throughout this list. There are people on here that are great, but maybe I just don't feel it. Okay, so this is my list. In no particular order. I'm just kind of juggling around, and at the end, we'll get to my top 3, maybe 4. Frank Zappa. One of my favorite leads is on a live John Lennon song with Yoko Ono, and it's called Well, Baby, Please Don't Go. And John Lennon yells out in the middle of the song, Zappa! And Frank just comes in on this incredible note, and it just goes, it does this in perfect lead. But just the way it first comes in, it's just amazing. And then my favorite Frank Zappa album is Apostrophe. The guitar playing on that, I mean, he's got probably 100 albums out, but that Apostrophe album is my favorite Frank Zappa album, and he's got some amazing guitar work on there. Then Santana, Carlos Santana, Europa. I'm not the biggest Santana fan, but Europa, I feel that. It's my favorite Santana song. David Gilmour from Pink Floyd, the live version of Comfortably Numb. Oh my God. Again, David Gilmour is not my favorite guitarist, but he has something special. And listen to the live version of Comfortably Numb and crank it. Oh my God. And then, we all went through, or I went through my Peter Frampton stage, right? Peter Frampton's was great, and it's still great. And I feel a lot of his stuff, too. I felt a lot of his stuff. Big Peter Frampton fan. He's right up there. Johnny Winter. Years ago, I tried to see him at the Channel Club in Boston, but it was sold out. There's no way I could get in there. But in 1988, me and my friend Lloyd went to the Blues Festival, 1988, and another person on the list, Leo Kottke, was there. I believe he was at that. Maybe it was. I could be confusing that with another festival, but I did see Leo Kottke a couple times. Arguably one of the greatest guitarists of all time, mainly focusing on acoustic, 6-string and 12-string, and both at the same time. Leo Kottke's awesome. But back to Johnny Winter. I finally get the chance to see him in 1988 at the Blues Festival in Mansfield, called Great Woods at that time. And there was a bunch of bands, Robert Cray, and John Mayall and Johnny Winter. And then the headliner was Stevie Ray Vaughan. And I wasn't the biggest Stevie Ray Vaughan fan because all I knew was what was on the radio. And, it sounded good, but I mainly went to see Johnny Winter. But we stayed, we're like, oh, let's just stay for one song for Stevie Ray Vaughan. And oh my God, when Stevie Ray Vaughan came on, our jaws dropped and we were mesmerized for the entire show. Stevie Ray Vaughan was an incredible performer. Awesome stuff. But Johnny Winter's right up there. I really love his album Third Degree on independent, I think Rhino Records possibly. Don't quote me on that. And he produced two of the best blues albums, Muddy Waters albums, I'm Ready and Hard Again. In my opinion, the two best blues albums ever done. Johnny Winter performs a little bit on them, produced both those Muddy Water albums. Great stuff. And then Rory Gallagher. I'm not too familiar with him, but I know he's held in high regard. And I heard a long time ago when somebody asked Jimi Hendrix who he thought the greatest guitar player was, he said, why don't you ask Rory Gallagher? So check that out. Then, of course, Brian May from Queen. I was a huge Queen fan, especially the early stuff. Loved Queen, loved Brian May, loved the whole band. Peter Townsend from The Who. Phenomenal songwriter, lyricist, great player. He's up there in the list. Prince, right? Purple Rain, and when he performed with most of the Traveling Wilburys with George Harrison, and they did Guitar Gently Weeps. Wow. Alvin Lee from 10 Years After. I mean, really? I mean, the guy's amazing. Roger Steen from The Tubes. An amazing guitar player, innovative, and just a great, great guitar player. Yngwie Malmsteen. I don't like Yngwie Malmsteen, but he was on the cutting edge, and he started the new genre of the speed guitar player and the virtuoso, the technical virtuoso. But it's just, guitar masturbation with a million notes a second. And I guess not a lot of people can do that, but technically he's probably great. But he first started off with the band Alcatraz with two guys from the band New England, who I've talked about a lot, and Graham Bonnet. And Yngwie was like 16 or 17 when he first started in that band. And then he became a superstar and a big ego, and he quit / got fired, and they replaced him with Steve Vai. Now, Steve Vai had just left Frank Zappa, and I have a funny little story about Steve Vai. And Steve Vai became the replacement for Yngwie in the band Alcatraz, and the name of that album was the Disturbing the Peace by Alcatraz. And his playing is great on there. And Steve Vai was great with David Lee Roth. A cool story about Stevie Vai, when he was first being auditioned / interviewed by Frank Zappa. Frank had a guitar and Steve Vai had a guitar, and Frank showed him, he says, okay, he played something, goes, play this. And Steve Vai copied it. And he said, all right, play this. And Steve Vai copied that. And then Frank played something just too wacky. And Steve Vai said, he goes, I can't play that. He said, only you can play that. He goes, nobody can play that. And Frank Zappa said to Steve Vai, he goes, well, I heard Linda Ronstadt's looking for a guitar player. Funny story, but he did end up hiring him. And my favorite Alcatraz album is the one that Steve Vai was on, Disturbing the Peace. What a great, great album. Then there's Joe Satriani, who I never related to whatsoever. and he plays a lot with Sammy Hagar. And a recent interview with Sammy Hagar, I heard him say, Joe Satriani, again, he's a technical virtuoso, and he's explaining to Sammy Hagar, he's dissecting what Eddie Van Halen used to play with his augmented notes and time signatures and all this kind of stuff. And Sammy Hagar didn't understand a word of it, but it goes to my point of there are some guitar players that are technically great, but I don't feel it. So you can play a million notes a second, but doesn't mean it's necessarily music or there's a melody in there. All right, we're getting close to the end here. Randy Rhoads, right, from Ozzy Osbourne. Again, great young guitar player. I was a huge Black Sabbath fan. Still, it's my second favorite band of all time. Beatles are number one. Electric Light Orchestra is probably number three. But those first two Ozzy albums that Randy Rhoads were on was amazing, fun, heavy, melody-driven hard rock / heavy metal music that there was at the time. Great albums. You can't argue with that. Moving up the line, Michael Schenker. I've seen him a few times. I've seen UFO. I love Michael Schenker. And my favorite lead that he's ever done is by what he played on UFO song called Love to Love. And the solo on that is just off the charts. And then we have Eddie Van Halen, who is arguably probably the second or third greatest guitar player of all time. Even Ted Nugent, when asked recently who was the best guitar player of all time, he said Eddie Van Halen. He said nobody could match his rhythm and his feel and style. He was certainly an innovator. But again, I never really connected or felt. I could appreciate his playing, but I never really felt it. Same thing goes with Jeff Beck, right? Arguably one of the greatest guitar players, a very innovative guitar player. But I never really felt his style. Although on the Ozzy album, I think Patient Number 9, where he had guest stars on there, I think Jeff Beck played a couple songs, knocked it out of the park. Those leads are incredible. All right, so now we're getting down to the top three. And number 3 and number 4 can be interchangeable, and I'll explain why. So I'm going to have to say my number 4 favorite guitar player is Jimmy Page. He's just great, period. I mean, what else can you say, right? Number 3 for me is Tony Iommi from Black Sabbath. Black Sabbath, the Ozzy 70s Black Sabbath is my second favorite band of all time. And Tony Iommi was the main driver of that. And my favorite lead, I mean, there's tons of them, but the lead that I feel the most, that is absolutely brilliant, is off the Technical Ecstasy album, and the song is called Nobody Will Change Me. And he does it a couple times with the solo. I call it throwing out the clutch. I don't know how he does it, but in between the hectic, eclectic lead work, he does something with a whammy bar or puts a pedal on, and I call it throwing out the clutch. Listen to that song off of Technical Ecstasy, Nobody Will Change Me. I absolutely love that lead. And I also love the lead off the song Gypsy off the same album, Technical Ecstasy. And I love just about everything else he's done. Number 2 has to be Ritchie Blackmore from Deep Purple. Are you kidding me? Listen to the album called In Rock. It opens up with a song called Speed King. Oh I mean, that's like speed metal. It's like the fastest song ever done at that time. Um, I don't know. I don't know how the hell they did it. Ian Gillan is like singing rapid fire. It is an amazing. And Richie Blackmore is just again. What more needs to be said? Richie Blackmore, everything he's done. I mean, with Rainbow and Deep Purple and his solo stuff, it's just amazing. And then the number one guitar player of all time for me has to be Jimi Hendrix. Died way before his time, but just listen to his first album, Are You Experienced? It's the greatest hits. I mean, it's nobody had ever done anything like that, or since, in my opinion. He only put out three albums in his lifetime. A lot posthumous were released after he died, compilations and lost tracks and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, Jimi Hendrix, I think, was the greatest of all time, with Richie Blackmore a close second, and then it's kind of Jimmy Page and Tony Iommi. Yeah, so there's my list. I hope you enjoyed my little show today, and please like, subscribe, hit the all button, the bell thing on there to get notifications, and rock on, everybody.